Welcome into the 49er Access podcast. My name is Sterling Bennett, and as of right now, midnight, March 11th, we have entered into the legal tampering period for NFL free agency. No, players cannot officially sign just yet. That begins March 13th, this Wednesday, when the new league year begins. But as of right now, teams can discuss, talk to, and unofficially sign free agents. San Francisco's already been busy this offseason, having extended Colton McKivitz contract until 2025. They've re-signed Ben Barch to a one-year deal. They've also unofficially released Arik Armstead, freeing up $18 million via a post-June 1st roster cut. They will not have access to that money until June 2nd. So, well, yes, they do kind of have $18 million in cap space. That's more so of they have it, but in the future to make those moves. It does not alleviate and remove their potential of freeing up money now. In fact, they've already asked Kyle Juszczyk to join Arik Armstead. No, not being cut, but in the conversation of, will you take a pay cut for us? That reported by Adam Kaplan via Pro Football Network. So San Francisco in the business of making moves, and today we are going to discuss which moves they indeed might make this NFL free agency. Again, nothing can be official until Wednesday, but we'll dive into their positions of need and which players I think on the free agent market fit those positions and who I think I will predict, get into my magic 8-ball, my crystal ball, into who I think San Francisco will indeed sign this offseason. And let's start with the white whale, the big name himself. No, it's not Brian Burns via trade with the Panthers. It is Vikings free agent edge rusher Danielle Hunter. I am someone who predicted San Francisco drafting a right tackle, signing an elite edge rusher this offseason, and I even mentioned a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, players like Arik Armstead or Javon Hargrave might be candidates to be traded or cut. Lo and behold, one of those have already, while unofficially taken place. It seems like San Francisco could indeed head in the direction of an elite edge rusher next. It already technically has when you're watching and listening to the show. So my first pick is Danielle Hunter, a Vikings free agent edge rusher. He's 29 years old, so he's not over the age of 30, which is great. And he's not going to become 30 until later on this year. He played just under 90%, 89% of the Minnesota snaps last season, so he's not ever off the field. He's usually healthy all year long. He's available, unlike Arik Armstead's been, unlike Dee Ford was, which was truly the last time San Francisco had a high-paid edge rusher opposite Nick Bosa. I get they had Chase Young, but they've been going at it with Arden Keys and Samson Ebukams and Charles Amenahus. No disrespect, they're not Danielle Hunter, who had 16 and a half sacks last year, fits this system to a T. He's had 10-plus sacks for the last 5 seasons, had 80 pressures last year, a 13.5 pressure rate, and he is someone who not just gets sacks, not just gets pressure, he is someone who attacks the ball, is stout in run defense, has 41 tackles for loss since 2021. That ranks 8th in the NFL. He's got the upfield burst, the speed rusher prototype San Francisco wants opposite Nick Bosa, He has the pass rushing maneuvers to not just win via his strength and quickness. He also has a swim move. He also has the spin move. He has pass rushing moves that make him one of the elite level edge rushers. You put him opposite Nick Bosa, you not only have yourselves the best tandem edge rushers, you have yourself the number one tandem in edge rushers in the entire NFL. And you want to talk about flushing guys in to a pocket that will have Javon Hargrave and insert maybe somebody else you might add here later on in the show, but Fred Warner and others. It's only going to help San Francisco stop mobile quarterbacks and also get sacks against non-mobile quarterbacks. In this day and age, you need to have two stud edge rushers, whether it be the draft or free agency. While I do think that San Francisco might find themselves looking at Danielle Hunter saying, well, can you drop that price tag? He's rumored to want $25 to $27 million per year. I would like to think that's going to be too expensive for San Francisco, but like you and I both know, it's not about how much money you average per year. It's how you spread that money across the contract. San Francisco's smart. They know in 2 years they got to pay Brock Purdy. They also know in 2 years they may not have to pay Deebo Samuel. They may not have to pay Trent Williams. They may not have to pay Kyle Juszczyk. They know that they are going to have money to spend, and if they can structure a contract right, they're not just getting one of the best sack artists across from Nick Bosa, who himself is already one of the best in the game. They're also getting someone that knows how to set the edge, which is going to help in run defense. Danielle Hunter, to me, is the golden goose, the white whale. If you want to say who is the number one free agent the Niners have to sign, it is Danielle Hunter, Vikings edge rusher. Let's go to a handful of other options. I think in free agency, edge rusher is their number one need. It's the reason why you do cut Arik Armstead. I get that money is not going to be available until post June 1st, but you can restructure guys. There's a reason why you ask Kyle Juszczyk to take a pay cut. Now, who knows what involves that? Is that a restructure? Is that an extension? Who knows? But you don't ask your star players to either take pay cuts or release them unless you have something brewing behind the scenes you want to allocate those funds to later. Now, that could be paying Brock Purdy in 2 years. That could be extending Brandon Aiyuk. That can be bringing back Jawan Jennings. You have no idea what that move or moves might be. But if you can't bring in Danielle Hunter, I have some other options on my list. How about Leonard Floyd, Buffalo Bills free agent edge rusher? He's 31 years old, 2 years older than Hunter, but had 10.5 sacks this past year, double-digit sacks opposite Nick Bosa, had 41 pressures, but he only played half the snaps that Hunter played. Hunter played 89. Floyd played 54% of the snaps in Buffalo, had an 11.3 pressure rate. Now, here's the kicker. While Hunter may have asked or may be rumored to want $25 to $27 million, Floyd admittedly said, wherever the money goes, that's where I go. I would also think this, that in a market that has younger players than Floyd, better players than Floyd, that are more available than Leonard Floyd, I do think the familiarity in this system, having already played in LA with McVay, Raheem Morris, now playing, if he does sign with San Francisco with Nick Sorensen, he knows what this system is like. He likes the West Coast. I think Leonard Floyd could be a fallback option if indeed they cannot get Hunter. Leonard Floyd is a number 2. Makes a ton of sense, but I will say this. If I was to pick the handful of free agent edge rushers, I think Floyd might be towards the bottom of my list simply because, yes, I think Hunter, he's the guy you want. Floyd's a fine fallback option if you don't get Hunter, but if you can't get Hunter, does San Francisco opt to go the super young route, or do they opt to go to the let's get 2, 3, 4 guys in this room if we can't get our 1 or 2 options? One option I do know it's been mentioned, but I do think will indeed price himself out of San Francisco's range is Jonathan Grenard from Houston. He's 27 years old, had 55% snap count, 12.5 sacks. This was indeed his first breakout season. He had 48 pressures, 12.5 sacks, a 12.8 pressure rate. Stellar season. Here's the thing. He missed 19 games in the past 4 seasons. While, yes, he has natural bend. He's able to get to the quarterback. He can turn that pocket around to make it ugly and nasty and dirty for a quarterback where he has to evade and get out and make a different play. I do think Grenard will be in high demand because of his age. He's 27, unlike Floyd, who's 31. Unlike Hunter, who Hunter will be the number one edge rusher in the entire market. But Grenard's 2 years younger and could be hitting the prime of his career. Would you want to pair him with Nick Bosa? He played in Houston last year at Demeco Ryans. He knows this system. He has experience in this system as of last year, unlike Floyd, who's been removed for a year and a half or so. I like Grenard, but I think that age, 27, it feels like he will get paid big money, either by Houston or somebody else. When you're 27, hitting your prime of the career, or hitting his prime of his career, it's hard for a team like San Francisco to look at that and say, yeah, we can give you, 25 over the course of 5 years. San Francisco might be able to give Hunter a 3-year contract for I don't think San Francisco wants to tie themselves to a player for 5-6 seasons, which is why Hunter makes a lot more sense than Grenard might be. You can give Hunter a 3-year deal. He'll be 32 by the end of it. Then you can say goodbye and say whatever if he starts to fall off. If Grenard wants a 5 or 6 year contract, he already has injury history. He's had one breakout season. Hunter has been arguably the most consistent edge rusher to not win a Defensive Player of the Year award. That's how good Danielle Hunter has been. There's someone like Bryce Huff, who with the Jets last year, he's young as well. He's 26 years old. 10 sacks, 67 pressures, a 21.3 pressure rate, which is the highest of the entire free agent edge rushing market. That's how good Bryce Huff was last year in the exact same system San Francisco wants to run. I do think, though, unlike Danielle Hunter, who is in every down, he played nearly 90% of Minnesota snaps. He's great, a great pass rusher. Bryce Huff is a rotational pass rushing specialist. He's extremely quick, can get under the blocks he has. He has the upfield burst to catch up to defenders, but also can blow right by tackles with his speed. He's not a good run defender. Now, that may come with time on the field, but it does seem like what San Francisco wants. Like, if you're going to go sign Bryce Huff, you have to make it a point to sign run defending edge rushers. And if you're going to replace Armstead, if he indeed is gone, you have to add run defending tackles to aid a player like Huff, because he's not going to play on rundowns. He's only going to be a pass rusher for you. So again, if you can hear what I'm getting at, I'm leaning heavy towards go get Danielle Hunter. But if you're not going to, I would lean towards someone like a Bryce Huff, not as the number 2 option, and that will be Leonard Floyd in my mind. But if you're going to talk about rotational pieces of, hey, how can we go pay 2, 3, 4 guys? Bryce Huff will be someone I would eye as my rotational piece. He's 26 years old, breakout season last year, had the highest pressure rate of anybody on the market, but he's kind of one half of a player. There's potential there, but as of right now, he's far from a finished product. Hence why, if you're going to get Bryce Huff, I think you go and try to get someone else like DJ Wanham from Minnesota. Say you can't get Hunter. Why not go get another Vikings edge rusher on the market? DJ Wanham, just like Bryce Huff, if they joined as a tandem, both 26 years old. Wanham is 6'5", 258 pounds, played 73% of the snaps last season for Minnesota, had 8 sacks, 38 pressures, had an 8.5 pressure rate. He is someone who I think, when you look at Huff from the Jets and then you add Wanham, that's when you start getting into the Ebukams, the Amenahues, the Arden Keys of, okay, how do we bring in 2, 3, 4 guys to fill the void of one player? When you lose D Ford via injury, how do you replace that production? You add 3, 4, 5 guys to add depth to your roster in case someone goes down. But if I'm San Francisco, if I can bring if I can bring back Clelin Ferrell, a run defending edge rusher, and I can add a Wanham and a Bryce Huff. I mean, my goodness. And here's the thing too with Wanham, he tore his quad last year. You might get him for relatively cheap compared to the bigger names. You can add a Wanham for 2 years, $10 million, and pay $5 million for a 26-year-old 6'5" edge rusher paired with Clelin Ferrell and paired with Bryce Huff. I mean, my goodness, you have yourself in the business of creating misery. Hope you got that reference for opposing one. On the edge rushing market is Josh Uche from the New England Patriots. He's the youngest player of the ones I've listed. He's 25 years old. Only played 29% of snaps for the Patriots last year. Only had 3 sacks, 37 pressures, but a 17% pressure rate. Josh Uche feels like a 1-year prove-it deal. That's the rumor around his name currently because last year, he suffered an injury. In 2022, he was a stud, okay? He was one of the best pass rushers in the entire league, led the entire league, or was one of the top 5 guys in pressure rate, had 11.5 sacks. Once Matthew Judon got hurt in New England, he tanked. You pair him with Nick Bosa and Javon Hargrave, and if it's a 1-year prove-it deal for Josh Uche, which has been the history of San Francisco, Clelin Ferrell, Arden Key, Charles Omenihu, which was a quiet trade, Ebukam was I think a 2 or 3 year deal. You can get a 25-year-old 1-year prove-it deal for Josh Uche, and he's proven with talent around him, he can give you elite level numbers. Why not pair him with Nick Bosa and Hargrave? And if they can find somebody else in the middle, or let's say Armstead restructures that contract and doesn't leave, which is the current report out there, maybe you get Uche, Armstead, Hargrave, and Bosa with depth behind them, and you're cooking with some oil here. And I think Clelin Ferrell will come back. I'm operating under the idea Clelin Ferrell will be back. If I had my choice, I would want Danielle Hunter and Clelin Ferrell, then a bunch of depth behind those guys. But I think San Francisco, one, will indeed try to get Danielle Hunter. If they fail, and this is my prediction, I think, yes, they want Hunter. Yes, he's the guy they indeed are going to go after. But 2, I think a rotational edge rushing group of Josh Uche and DJ Wanham with Clelin Ferrell coming back and Drake Jackson make a ton of sense for this roster. In fact, that is my prediction, that they're not going to get Danielle Hunter. My prediction is they'll keep their eye on Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. If those guys get released, we shall see. My prediction is they go get Josh Uche. My prediction is they bring back Clelin Ferrell. And I think they sign DJ Wanham to relatively cheap deals. They're not going to break the bank for all these people. They are going to go out there and they are going to make sure they can define the trenches on defense and make sure they have a handful of pieces in place to not only aid Nick Bosa, but to help them as the year progresses, because guys are going to get hurt. There's no promise of guys staying healthy. Armstead's been hurt in previous years, whatever. Clelin Ferrell got hurt. Drake Jackson got hurt. You have to have more than on that defensive line, which right now consists of Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave. If Armstead's released, he's gone. You have Kalia Davis, Robert Beal Jr., and an injured Drake Jackson. You have 5 guys, 2 of them being defensive tackles, and 3 of those players being wildly unproven. You need to have depth. I think you can acquire Uche, Ferrell, and Wanham for either similar prices or even cheaper than Danielle Hunter. You want the big fish. I get it. They're going to go for it. But my prediction is they're going to swing. They're going to swing a couple of times, and they're going to miss. I think they settle for Uche, Wanham, and they bring back Clelin Ferrell, giving them a rotation that you look at and say, man, these guys are really deep all over the place. I do want to look at the interior defensive line next. So what San Francisco has wanted to do the past couple of years is acquire pass rushing interior guys, hence Javon Hargrave. I do think one player that gives them some flexibility inside and outside is someone who I thought they may have had their eyes on at the trade deadline this past year. That is Titans free agent defensive tackle with experience at edge rusher, Danielle Hunter. Autry's 34 years old. He's an old player, but he plays young. He has that file where you watch him play and you go, this guy's 34 years old. He played 66.7% of snaps last year for Tennessee, had 11 and a half sacks at the defensive tackle position, 17 quarterback hits. He's 6'5", 285. He can play five technique. He's a great, attacker. He's athletic. He's unafraid to chase the plays down in the open field. And if San Francisco is going to lose Greenlaw, Givens, and if they're going to lose Arik Armstead, why not look to bring back or go sign a player like Danielle Hunter, who has been awesome for you, or awesome for Tennessee the past couple seasons? It makes a ton of sense if you're San Francisco to go and try to acquire a player like Danielle Hunter. I know my camera probably just froze for a handful of time. Stick with me here. We're back on the video on YouTube. I think Autry makes a lot of sense. There are veteran players like DJ Reader, who's an awesome run defender, probably going to price himself out of their market. If it was me, I'm working under the assumption they're going to bring back Kevin Givens. I do think Greenlaw has an outside chance to return, but I'm not in the business of playing injured players. Just because you're healthy for 1 year does not mean that's going to be the rest of your career, and vice versa. That could easily be the rest of your career. When you sit back and say, man, what did we miss out on? But I'm also someone who believes once the Denver Broncos release, or what seems to be cutting, DJ Jones, if you give me Bosa, Hargrave, and you sign DJ Jones, a cannonball style of player, then you add in Farrell, and you add in Wanham and Uche and Drake Jackson, okay, you now have yourself something to build upon. Sit back and watch and say San Francisco's defensive line has gotten younger. They've gotten healthier. They have gotten more depth. And you've also not lost the chance to draft players with the 11 picks you have come April. I like Danielle Hunter, veteran player, 34 years old, 11 and a half sacks. If that's who they go and get for a 1 year deal, hey, you'll be 35 this year, Danielle. Come be my third defensive tackle. We'll work you in on 3rd and 15s, on 3rd and 8s. Imagine having 2 pass rushing tackles. And I get it. You can't always spend on the defensive line. I'm also someone who believes they're going to draft the tackle and draft a guard in this draft. I think they're going to want to spend. Danielle Hunter is healthy, rarely ever injured. DJ Jones, relatively healthy for his age. He's younger than Armstead. It makes a lot of sense. If Armstead's gone, you have to replenish. Bring back Givens and give me either DJ Jones or Danielle Hunter. I think they go with DJ Jones. So right now, my predictions are Armstead probably gone if he doesn't, rework his deal in a way. Chase Young's not coming back. Gregory's gone. But I think on the defensive line, they're going to add Josh Uche from New England, DJ Wanham from the Vikings, bring back Clelin Ferrell. They're going to add DJ Jones from the Broncos, who was in San Francisco for the beginning of his career. That is you're cutting one player and you're paying 4 other guys for relatively the same value. You are getting a lot of boom for your buck in this case. You're getting rotational depth. You're getting starting caliber players in Uche and DJ Jones. And if you're Chris Kosaric and you're Nick Sorensen and you're Brandon Staley, you are licking your chops knowing what your defense just acquired. It sucks losing Armstead. It really does. Who knows what other moves they're going to make. But if you can acquire these people, my predictions are these 4 guys coming back and being on your defensive line. I mean, I'm in the business of winning it all. San Francisco, if Armstead is released, is in the business of saying, hey, we're going to restructure guys and we're going to push some money down the road and we're going to extend some contracts in summer with that Armstead money. But right now, we're also in the business of adding starting caliber players to give us the best chance to win it all again. San Francisco wants to go for it. You give me DJ Jones, Wanham, Uche, Farrell, and Drake Jackson once he's back healthy. I mean, that is something to look forward to and say, man, like San Francisco, like they have had the past few years, have gotten themselves some dogs in that room. Now, look, you can't have everything you want, right? Some of these guys may price themselves out of the market. But one thing that I have seen San Francisco 49er fans point to that they want is another linebacker. I am going to work under the assumption they bring back either Oren Burks or Demetrius Flanagan-Falls. I think they're going to bring back Demetrius Flanagan-Falls. That makes the most sense to me. He has, like Oren Burks, albeit cheaper, special teams flexibility, and he also played relatively well when Dre Greenlaw got hurt in the Super Bowl. They have Fred Warner, they have Jalen Graham, D. Winters, and once you bring back DFF, you got to add one more player in the absence of Dre Greenlaw. So who could that be? I think you handle a linebacking replacement, I'll call it that, for until Greenlaw can get back as kind of a backup quarterback. It's a one-year deal. You never want to go over $6 million on a backup quarterback. Kind of Andy Dalton, Sam Darnold. You want to pay them 1 year. Don't be tied to him, knowing you're getting your guy back eventually. He's just there to either start while your player's out, being Dre Greenlaw, or in case Dre Greenlaw isn't exactly healthy or is battling through trying to get back on the field to be himself again, he can be available for you throughout the season. Some fans have pointed to Bobby Wagner. Still a very good run defender, just really bad in pass coverage. I would not bring him back. I think he'd be a liability. I think someone I'd look at would be Eric Kendricks, who this past year had 117 tackles, played 790 snaps, had 4 sacks, 7 quarterback hits, forced a fumble. He has played under Brandon Staley before, this past year, before Staley got fired. Albeit different systems, might be some comfortability there for Kendricks. Kendricks also played for the Vikings. He was the one that picked off Jimmy Garoppolo in the playoff game in 2019 that made Shanahan say, I don't trust you anymore, Jimmy. I think Kendricks is relatively... I don't think he'd be a liability in pass coverage. Obviously, he's 32. There is a step that has been lost as to who he was in Minnesota, but you're not asking these guys to be all pros. You're asking these guys to be a veteran starter. And I think on the market, you can work him down to around $6 million. Eric Kendricks makes some sense, played 15 games this past year. But if that's too expensive for you, how about Jordan Hicks, who was in Minnesota this past year? He was in Arizona. He was the guy that picked off Jimmy G twice in 2019 in the Jeff Wilson game-winning touchdown game at Levi Stadium. So not to pick on Jimmy G, but two of their linebackers he's thrown picks to are on the market. Both of them having played San Francisco in the past, both of them being former Vikings, and both of them likely around $6 to $5 million. This year, Jordan Hicks, 32 years old, like Eric Kendricks. The Hicks, 768 snaps to Kendricks, 790 snaps. Hit 107 tackles. He had 1 sack, 2 quarterback hits, 1 forced fumble, and 1 interception. I think Jordan Hicks makes a lot of sense. Former Cardinal, played in the NFC West before. He's not going to want you to give him 2 or 3 years on a deal. He's a guy, a vet, who'll be 33. Let me play in the absence of Greenlaw. These guys aren't great. You are not asking them to be great. You just need a veteran player. I think Hicks or Kendricks make a ton of sense, but let's go to the one that many fans point to and say, that's the guy I want, Azeez Al-Shaair. I think Azeez Al-Shaair would be phenomenal to get back in San Francisco. It's a move that makes sense for both parties. There's a need on both sides. I just don't know what exactly Azeez wants in free agency. His current market value sits at exactly $5 million. If that's the case, yeah, bring Azeez back. The issue is he's a younger player. Azeez is what? He's 26, going to be 27 this year. I would assume at 26, 27 years old, he wants to get locked into a contract for about 2, 3, 4 years. If I'm San Francisco, are you willing to commit to that? And if you're Azeez, are you only going to play under $5 million contracts for 4 or 5 years? I would assume Azeez is going to want somewhere between, 3 years and, I don't know, $21 million. 3 years and 18 or $24 million. I think he'll want upwards of 7 to 8 mil. I think that might be too pricey for San Francisco. I think they only want a 1-year deal. They see D. Winters at practice, Jalen Graham. They have 11 picks this year. I would like to think that room, the linebacking room, is going to get added to. I do not see Azeez Al-Shaair being here, albeit he's an amazing culture fit. He was here in the postseason in the linebacking circle with Dre Greenlaw, with Fred Warner, while he was currently on the Titans. Like, Azeez would be phenomenal to get back in the room. I just don't think that's going to happen. I feel like if you bring back DFF or Oren Burks, either one of those guys, I think you're looking to add a kind of a bargain bin player. One other guy I'd point to that, kind of like Eric Kendricks this past year, does have experience under Brandon Staley. I believe Staley drafted him. I could be wrong about this, but Kenneth Murray. He's 25 years old, relatively younger. He played 15 games this year, played nearly 970 snaps for the Chargers, had 107 tackles. He had 3 sacks for LA. He also had 4 quarterback hits and 1 interception. His current market value is around $3.5, $4, $5 million, equal to Jordan Hicks, equal to around Eric Kendricks, just under his contract. He's someone that I don't love Kenneth Murray, but if Brandon Staley has a say in somebody, I would like to think if you're going to take a flyer on someone and you want to sign someone to a multi-year deal, how about a 25-year-old that Staley could advocate for? That, hey, once Greenlaw comes back, you're not going to have a starting job, but you can be in the room and learn from Warner and Greenlaw. I can see Kenneth Murray wanting that. That's not my prediction. In fact, my prediction is they go and they bring back DFF, and I think they might sign Jordan Hicks. I think it makes a lot of sense. It depends on the price, obviously. You don't want to go crazy, but he's a veteran player. He's not going to want too much money. He's a starting caliber linebacker. He's not Dre Greenlaw. No one's Dre Greenlaw outside of Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner. Like, Greenlaw's a top 10 linebacker in football. I think signing a Jordan Hicks is the move for me. That's what I would do. I don't see them drafting a linebacker in the first 3, 4 rounds. I think I could justify in the 4th round, but with what they have, who they're paying, I have a hard time believing you're starting a linebacker as a rookie on this team. I could be totally wrong there, but I think San Francisco is banking on Dre Greenlaw being back healthy eventually this year. Who knows? He may not be. Recovery can go very poorly, but if that's the case, kind of like Hufanga, you want to have somebody in that room like a Jordan Hicks, like an Eric Kendricks. In my mind, again, Jordan Hicks is the guy that can be a vet. He will know the system fairly well, and he's not going to walk in the room and say, what do I do? Like, he's going to be prepared, ready to go from day one. I think San Francisco goes and signs Jordan Hicks. So we've added Uche, we've added DJ Jones, we've added Wanham, We brought back Farrell and we added Jordan Hicks. We signed 5 players, essentially 4 players minus a re-signing of Farrell to this roster. Um, I think that's pretty good so far. But let's move to the safety room. Actually, let's go to the entire secondary of San Francisco. San Francisco has the chance to just go balls to the wall, go big, or go home. That could start with Danielle Hunter. That can start with adding Hunter and DJ Jones and just going crazy and spending all this money, freeing up contracts, pushing, contracts down the line, restructuring, extending guys, and just going nuts, saying, "Hey, we are going for it again. Screw the cap, screw the money. We're gonna go crazy." There is one move at cornerback I do think would be relatively cheap, and they have experience adding a player like this, and that is Tre'Davious White. Now, Tre'Davious White has massive injury history. He tore his Achilles and tore his ACL in back-to-back seasons. We have to be honest here. He's an older cornerback. He isn't super old, but when you've torn your ACL and torn your Achilles, your legs are not what they used to be. And in man coverage, once you've done that, you are a liability. There as my camera goes out again. um, that being said, Tre'Davious White, just like Richard Sherman in 2018, who had a torn Achilles, came into a defensive scheme that was not man coverage heavy, that was zone heavy, and had another elite season in 2019. I think if you are Tre'Davious White, you're sitting back, you have to be honest with yourself. Can I cover in man coverage? Probably not. I cannot keep up in man coverage. But what can I do? I can utilize my smarts, my history in the NFL, my experience to my advantage. And if he can just stay healthy, that's a risk. When you tear your ACL and tear your Achilles, you may not be the same. But just like Richard Sherman, I do think if he comes to San Francisco, he wouldn't have to guard number ones anymore. That will be Mooney Ward. You'd be able to keep Lenore on the inside. And you have Tre'Davious White with Ambry Thomas, with Samuel Omack, with maybe Darrell Luter Jr., with maybe a rookie in that room that if he goes down for 1, 2, 3 games, you're not petrified as to what might happen. Like if Ambry Thomas is your 4th cornerback, which he was coming into this year, and Isaiah Oliver sucked, but with the expectation of, hey, you're going to be our number 4 cornerback and number 3 outside corner, I think if you're San Francisco, you're okay with that. Now, Tre'Davious White might want big money. I would like to think after 2 season-ending injuries, that's not the case. If he does not want a big chunk of change, I'm at least making a call for Tre'Davious White. But I do think San Francisco has 2 more likelier options. The first one, my pick who signs here in San Francisco, is Levi Wallace, a Steelers free agent. So we are hammering home the defensive side of the ball in free agency. Okay. He's 29 years old, had 11 pass defenses this past season, had 2 interceptions. He's had 6 picks in the last 2 years. A veteran savvy player. He's physical. He's a willing tackler. And again, kind of like Tre'Davious White, he can either be your starting outside number 2 cornerback while Lenore plays the inside opposite Mooney Ward. Or if you believe in Ambry Thomas, which I don't think they do, but I think they like him enough to keep him around. If Ambry Thomas shines and improves in training camp this year in preseason to win the outside job, Levi Wallace makes a lot of sense to have as that kind of safety net on the outside in case Thomas just falls apart again. I think they sign Levi Wallace to like a 1-year, $4 million deal. You don't want to get too crazy. Even if it's 2 years for $8 million. I am totally okay with that. He'll be 31 years old. He's a vet. He's savvy. He's played in Pittsburgh. He's been in Detroit. He knows how to play outside corner in the NFL. The other person I do think has an outside chance to be signed by San Francisco in the cornerback room is Jaguars cornerback Trey Herndon. Trey Herndon is not great. Doesn't have great ball skills, but he can play inside and outside. He can play outside cornerback and nickel. San Francisco values that versatility, hence why Isaiah Oliver was brought in last year. He had played outside cornerback for the majority of his career in Atlanta, but then got moved to nickel, I think, the previous year prior to signing with San Francisco last year. So I think for Trey Herndon, San Francisco does not like Samuel Womack at the nickel. They do not like him there. Luter is an outside cornerback. Outside of Lenore, he's the only nickel back they have. I think Trey Herndon makes a lot of sense simply because there's versatility there, unless they draft another nickel cornerback who they do like. They love Andrew Phillips, and this nickel cornerback draft class is really good. Like, unlike linebacker, I can see them going cornerback in the third round. I can see them picking a nickelback in the third round. I would not be surprised if they go for Trey Herndon, they have Lenore, bump Lenore outside, and have that rookie and Herndon battle for nickel. I would not be surprised. But I'm also someone who believes in Darrell Luter Jr. Give him a full offseason program. He was hurt the entirety of training camp, almost the entirety of OTAs. He didn't play a single snap in preseason and then started the year on IR. I think Darrell Luter makes some sense to get a shot at the outside cornerback job, hence why I think you bring in someone like a Trey Herndon if you want that versatility at Nick Wallace. So you gone and you signed Uche and you got and won him and you brought back Farrell and you gotten your big boy and DJ Jones. You've also added Jordan Hicks and Levi Wallace. You have kind of rounded out your defensive side of the ball with veteran players that are not going to blink in big moments, or like Hicks, will give your other star linebacker a chance to get healthy. I think San Francisco is going big time defense. There also is another player that I do think might price himself out of San Francisco's market, but might be their Ray McLeod replacement, but on the defensive side of things. That is Keyshawn Nixon from the Packers. So he is the best nickelback in the entire free agent market. He's physical at the point of attack. He's not going to blink. He has burst to catch up to the deep routes on crossers. Like, he's a fast, you-know-whatter. He's awesome. And he also is an all-pro special teamer the past 2 seasons. I think McLeod is good as gone. If you want a special teams player, Keyshawn Dixon makes a lot of sense. If you're going to let Warren Brooks leave, if you're going to let DFF leave, you got George Odom. Why not bring in Keyshawn Dixon and have 2 special team all-pros in your secondary? Now, what does that add to your room? It adds a ton of versatility. Keyshawn Dixon as an all-pro special teamer and the best nickel in the draft, unlike Trey Herndon, you can tell Lenore you're playing outside. You can tell Dixon you are going to be our starting nickelback. Then your depth goes from, you have Lenore and Ward and Dixon. Then you go Thomas, a rookie, Womack, and Luter. Like, there's a lot of ways San Francisco can do this thing and figure it out. I think they'll covet Dixon. I just have a hard time believing someone else is not going to poach him. Hence why I'm leaning towards Levi Wallace. That being said, the guy you really want is Tre'Davious White, but I will keep my pick of Levi Wallace. Let's move back in that secondary group and let's go to the safeties. They have Jair Brown, they have Ufunga, they have George Odom, If they can bring back Deshaun Gibson, this whole conversation here is going to be null and void. You bring back Gibson if you can. He knows the system. He's played great, veteran player. These guys can learn from him. He can start. He can be a bench player for you. He is awesome. But if Gibson retires, you now have a question mark in Hufanga, not in who he could be or who he once was, but who he's going to be this year. Torn ACLs, most guys take 1 year to revert back to who they were pre-injury. And if you're San Francisco, I think there's two options on the market that make a ton of sense for this team. The first one, the heavy hitter, is Quandre Diggs, Seattle Seahawk this past year and a handful of years prior to that. He knows Nick Sorensen extremely well. In fact, when Sorensen got the job, who, of all people, congratulated Nick Sorensen saying, "My guy Nick, it was Quandre Diggs." He gets cut by Seattle. Who runs a similar system to Seattle? Oh, it's Nick Sorensen, the guy he has a good relationship with in San Francisco. He can start immediately if Hufunga's not ready. He has excellent ball skills. Like most veteran players, like Gibson is, their play recognition is awesome. Quandre Diggs fits that mold. Now, let's be honest here. He's an older safety. He's lost a step. He's not as quick as he used to be. And his tackling last year was pretty atrocious. But I do think in this system, with these players, which is a better defense personnel-wise than Seattle, even with the departure potentially of Arik Armstead, I think Quandre Diggs makes a lot of sense. He would not be asked to come in and relearn something or unlearn what he's known. It is simply a plug out of Seattle, put in your system, plug and play and go. He can play free safety. You can do a Jair Brown, a strong safety, and you're not going to miss anything. I do think, and even if Hufanga is healthy, Diggs can be your third safety, and he can also play on on three safety sets. Like you are going to find yourself with a little versatility, but let's say some other team wants to pay Diggs starting money, which I wouldn't doubt. I think you go to the Jets. I think you bring back a kid that went to Cal Berkeley, and if Gibson's not gonna want to come back, let's say he retires, I'm done, I give it all I had, goodbye. How about you look at Ashton Davis, Cal Berkeley safety, was in New York under Robert Saleh. Look, had an up and down career. There's no way around that up and down career, but he's a good run defender. He's willing to get his hands dirty. He's started in New York, been a bench player. He could fill in for Hufanga, and he's not going to be some random scrub. You're like, this is a 7th-round rookie. Oh my God. Like, he's not going to be overwhelmed. He's going to say, okay, I know the system extremely well. He's someone who has a knack for it. He had 6 takeaways last year. He had 3 picks and 3 forced fumbles. He knows how to get the ball back for your offense. And I don't think anyone's going to be begging for Ashton Davis to come back or to New York or sign elsewhere. Like, I think Ashton Davis, you get him back in the Bay. He went to Cal Berkeley. He knows the system, and I don't think he's going to break your bank. You give him a 2-year deal. You give him $10 million. You got 2 years. Or if that's too expensive, you give him 1 year, and you give him $3 million. I think Ashton Davis makes a lot of sense. It's kind of that budget safety that you're only going to need if Hufanga isn't the guy. And if Hufanga is healthy, and he is the guy who he once was, then you have yourself a starting caliber or, kind of starting realm-ish safety in Davis that can actually spot start and has a knack of getting you the ball back. Now, I will work under the assumption Gibson comes back. So whatever happens here, whatever. But I think Ashton Davis is kind of my sleeper pick if Gibson won't come back. Quarterback room, Purdy, Brandon Allen, insert third guy, probably a rookie. Running backs are kind of set. You have Juszczyk. I know you might be asked to take a pay cut. Apparently, he already has been. I think he's going to come back. I don't think it's going to be an issue for San Francisco. It makes a lot of sense. for them to ask him to take a pay cut. That being said, just extend Juszczyk. Um, I also don't think this team is going to be in the market for like a mass big name for receiver. And what I mean by that is like Odell Beckham Jr. They're going to bring back Aiyuk. I believe that. They're going to bring back Juwan Jennings. I also believe that. I don't think they're going to be in the market for a player like Odell Beckham Jr. One player I do like is Deontay Hardy, Buffalo Bills receiver who was cut. He's 26 years old, played 16 games last year. He isn't the most versatile receiver. He had one touchdown and fumbled twice. It's not pretty, right? Um, Especially when you had 15 receptions. You can't fumble twice. But he will likely be your primary kick returner. So we talked about Keyshawn Dixon earlier in regards to a safety or cornerback being able to fill McLeod's responsibilities if he is not brought back in free agency. Deontay Hardy had, I think, one kick return last year for touchdown, and San Francisco values having someone back there that can bring them some explosiveness. I think Hardy makes a lot of sense if McLeod, who I think will be cheaper than Hardy, so we'll see what they tend to do there. I do think McLeod makes sense to return. I don't think he's going to, though. But if he's not going to and they want to pay up for a more versatile receiver, I think Hardy is a better overall receiver than McLeod was. He is. He's 1 year younger than McLeod, which doesn't matter too much here. But I do think for San Francisco, if you want to get more explosive in special teams, Deontay Hardy makes a lot of sense to replace McLeod. I've heard some people say go get Ricky James Jr. back. I don't think that's happening. Laviska Chenault's pretty interesting, but I don't think they want to fill the Deebo Samuel role with Chenault, albeit it will be a lot of fun. I've also heard names like I cannot say his first name. It's hard to say for myself. See if I can find it here. It's Olamide Zaccheaus. He was in Philadelphia last year. He had 2 touchdowns, kind of that budget, 4th, 5th guy. I do think San Francisco will draft a receiver this year, knowing Deebo Samuel's going to be up for a contract in 2 years. I also think if they extend Aiyuk, you might see Deebo elsewhere in this year's time or in 1 year's time. If that's the case, you draft a guy and you go into this year with Deebo, Aiyuk, Jennings. Ronnie Bell will be in that room, obviously. I think you bring back Chris Conley. I think you draft somebody. I don't think they're going to add a big name receiver. Maybe you see McLeod come back. I also wouldn't be shocked to see somebody like Trent Taylor come back or River Craycraft. Someone that isn't too crazy. I do know San Francisco wants a burner. They want that speed. Danny Gray's in this team still, but he just cannot keep it together. But again, I think someone like Xavier Legette from South Carolina, Ricky Pearsall from Florida, and second, third round range make a lot of sense for this team. I have a hard time believing they're going to go and sign, some big name like Odell Beckham Jr. Like if it was me and I had my way, which this is my show, so maybe I can't have my way, but I think if you want to have the best of both worlds, you bring back McLeod and you draft somebody. But other than that, I don't see any big names. I also don't see them going nuts on the offensive line. I know people want them to have the best offensive line. I think they're going to spend defensively. I think they re-signed John Feliciano. But outside of that, they already brought back Ben Barch. They already extended McKivitz for another year. I guess technically 2 years. I think they go into this year with Trent Williams, Aaron Banks, Jake Brendel, John Feliciano playing right guard. They draft a right tackle. Then as depth, I think they have Ben Barch, Nick Zakelj, who was hurt last year, Spencer Burford, and Colton McKivitz as their swing tackle. That makes a lot more sense. Jalen Moore is still on the team, I believe. That makes a lot more sense. I'm sure it makes you a lot more comfortable than having Matt Pryor as your swing tackle. My goodness. That makes a lot more sense for me. The only true offensive position I see them spending on is tight end. This team has tried to get George Kittle, a number 2 tight end, all the way back in 2020. When they went into 2019, they had Kittle, they had Ross Dwelly, and they had Levine Toilolo, who I like Toilolo. He's a blocking tight end, went to the Giants. I think that was his name. When he left, they said, whoa, Kittle was a non-factor in the Super Bowl. Let's go get Jordan Reed. 2020 happens. Preseason, we're excited, pumped. Boom, COVID, fires, yikes, injuries everywhere. Jordan Reed retires. That draft comes along. They go and they draft Charlie Warner. He becomes another blocking tight end, but doesn't really progress into who they want him to be. And since then, they've had Kittle, they've had Dwelly, they've had Warner, and this past year they drafted Braden Willis and Cam Latu. Neither one of those players being any sort of factor for this team, and one of them, Latu, doesn't have a high potential. He's not a great blocker. He's not a good receiver, and he missed the entire year on IR. San Francisco, if they believed in either one of the players in the roster, I think Charlie Warner is good as gone. I want him back. I think he's gone. I think they bring back Ross Dwelly. You have Cam Latu. You have Braden Willis. I think you need to go shopping for a tight end. And if I'm sitting back and I'm San Francisco and you had Tyler Kroft for a little bit, but he just kind of wasn't the guy. Like, if I'm sitting here and I'm San Francisco, what you truly want to do, which won't happen, is you want Colby Parkinson, who was in Seattle this past year. That guy is one of the most underrated tight ends in the entire league. He's a good blocker. He's a really underrated receiver. He's awesome. But if I'm San Francisco, do you try to grab a Noah Fant? I know fans want it. I just don't see it happening. Like, when I look at San Francisco, I think of a player like Robert Tonyan, who was in Green Bay, that George Kittle has a good relationship with. He's a good enough receiver. He'll be able to go out there and do his thing. I also wouldn't be surprised if they bring in Mecole Pruitt again, who was here a couple years ago. Like, they've had some guys in the building, they let them walk, that have gone and played with Atlanta and Tennessee in Pruitt's case and been awesome when they've left. Like, I think you look for these budget guys, Pruitt, you bring back Dwelly. I think Robert Tonyan makes a lot of sense. I don't think Noah Fant's coming here from Seattle. He's 26 years old. I get it. He's got potential. But I just think, like, if you look at this draft class, they like tight ends in it. But if you are San Francisco, if I'm sitting back here and I'm trying to put this team together, I know I have limited space. Like, who wants to spend a lot of money on tight end number 2? Why not bring back Blake Bell? You drafted him a handful of years ago, pre-Shanahan. Didn't work out very well, I believe. He went to KC, improved a lot. They have no need for him. He's an amazing blocker. He's a good enough receiver. Like, if you want to lose me with Dwelly, that's fine. You bring me Blake Bell, and you're going to have yourself an improvement there. If you're going to lose Warner, go give me Blake Bell. Like, if I get they have Willis and they have Latu, but you have to have somebody to allow George Kittle to actually be a receiver in the Super Bowl. That's, to me, Blake Bell. That, to me, Robert Tonyan makes some sense if you want to have another receiving tight end. No one truly stands out in this group unless you want to go pay relatively nice money to Colby Parkinson, who probably going to get paid. Like, if I'm a team like the Colts, Colby Parkinson, come on down. Like, they're saying $6.6 million is going to be his market value. Like, they're saying 4 years, $26 million for Parkinson. He's 25 years old. Like, that's the guy if you want the defined bona fide number 2. But if I'm San Francisco, you can go ahead and you can give me a Blake Bell. You can go ahead and give me, Dwelly back, and we can add somebody else in that room. Like, would you want to pay Noah Fant his expected 2 years, $12.5 million? I'd rather have Parkinson. I'd much rather have Parkinson. That being said, I do not think San Francisco invests a lot on the offensive side. I think that's where they spend a lot of their draft capital on getting younger offensively, whether it's running back, tight end, receiver, offensive line. I think this draft leans heavy in that direction. Would not be surprised with 6, 7, probably the sweet spot of their 11 draft picks are on the offensive side of the football. On defense, I think that's where they go in free agency. I think they do sign Josh Uche. I think they do sign a player like DJ Wanham. I think they bring back DJ Moore. I think they sign Levi Wallace. I think they have their mitts in the conversation for Tre'Davious White. I think they sign Jordan Hicks. I think they add a lot of players on the defensive side of the ball. I would not be shocked if they go and get Keyshawn Dixon. On the offensive side of things, I think it might be McLeod. I think it might be a player like Blake Bell, maybe a Noah Fant. They bring back Feliciano. I think this is a heavy, heavy defensive free agency class for San Francisco, especially if players like Arms that are not going to be there next year. You have to replace them. It can't be this going to cut a guy and we're going to draft a replacement. You need to have instant impact on your team. You can find guys like that in the draft, fine, but you have also bigger needs than defensive tackle, and you have the money to sign them. There are instant impact defensive players that can fill the majority of your needs. I think, and I can be wrong, and we can look back in a couple weeks and say, wow, you're stupid, Sterling. Again, my predictions are they sign Josh Uche from the Patriots, DJ Wanham from Minnesota. I think they sign Levi Wallace, former Steeler, as a cornerback. I think they bring back Clellan Ferrell, who was here this past year. I think they sign Jordan Hicks, a linebacker, to aid in Greenlaw's recovery. And if Deshaun Gibson doesn't come back, I would not be surprised to hear Ashton Davis or Quandre Diggs names being listed near San Francisco in the conversation. On offense, I think it's you bring back McLeod, you sign a River Craycraft, someone like that, maybe a Trent Taylor who was here a couple years ago. Nothing crazy. They're going to bring back Aiyuk. They're going to bring back Jawan Jennings. They'll bring back Feliciano. Other than that, I'm not expecting many fireworks offensively here. I think it's going to be all defense. All defense. They have McCaffrey. They have Kittle. They have Deebo. Bring back Aiyuk. They're going to fix the offensive line via the draft. This free agency class screams defense, defense, defense. Other than that, all I'll say is welcome to NFL free agency. I'm excited. There's so much that can happen. San Francisco is already making moves. McKivitz, Ben Barch, they have essentially unofficially cut Arik Armstead. What the heck? And they've asked Kyle Juszczyk to take a pay cut. There's so much going on. I cannot wait. It's 1 o'clock in the morning on March 11th. By the time you're listening to this podcast, when it comes out at 5 a.m. today, you're probably already going to hear someone sign with San Francisco or they've made some interesting move with someone on their team. I cannot wait. This is what I live for. I love the games, but free agency and the draft is what I crave all year long. That being said, every move they make, I almost quoted the police there. Every breath they take, every move they make, I will be watching the San Francisco 49ers, and I hope when they make those moves, when they take those breaths, you will come back to watch and listen to me. Thank you so much for the amazing live feed after the Armstead news broke. It was the best we've ever done. All the comments were awesome. Thank you for watching, listening to that. Thank you for watching, listening to this. I want to remind you and hopefully ask you to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Tell me down below what your predictions are. You can also DM me, at me on Twitter which is 49ers_access. You can DM me and at me on Instagram, 49ers.access. Tell me your predictions for 49ers 2024 NFL free agency. And if you'd also like to help the show, it helps me, helps you, which helps me in return. If you're going to a sporting event or concert, use SeatGeek.com. And when you're checking out of your purchase, use our promo code 49ERSAccess. 49 ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com. And you can save yourself $20 off. It's a gift from me to you, which in return becomes a gift from you to me. All that to be said, thank you for watching, listening, liking, sharing, and subscribing. Welcome to free agency. Welcome to the offseason. Until next time, till that next move happens for San Francisco, stay faithful.